And I think it's up to us as adults in the community to start to think about how we can plan for those relationships, how we can identify those young people around us who we just want to be a friend to, who they know that they can actually speak to. And this is different from mentor programs, actually, because mentoring programs, they're all, there's lots of them, they're all the rage. You've got a funky one in Durham. But actually that's different, because that's people who you don't know coming and spending some time with you. And some of them are really important, like the 100 Black Men have a really good mentoring program. But I think that there's no substitute for having somebody in your life who you know is there for you and have this long-term connection with them. It's a bond of trust that exists. So being there for young people is about more than just sending them to school and making sure they have clothes on their back and food in their belly. We have to be there for them. And it's not just about actually helping young people through that crisis. It's about that holding on to that hope and that aspiration that they had when they first started out. All young people, when you ask them what you want to be, they don't say, I want to be a drug dealer. They don't want to say, I want to end up in prison or a mental health institution. They have dreams and they have aspirations. So we have to support them to become our next political leaders, our next business men, our head teachers, our chief executives, our innovators, and the people that make a change. And it's quite interesting that you should never stand by, you must always intervene. So my husband was born and brought up in St. Lucia. It's my fault that he's here. So what happened was that he's always very connected to our neighbours. I lived in our area for about 6 years before we got together. And I didn't know half the people. He knows nearly everybody in our area, including the young people. And we were at home a couple of months ago, and then we could hear commotion outside. And Clem just got up and he went outside. There was a group of young boys, about the age of about 10 or 11, trying to get the pizza off the pizza guy who was trying to make a delivery. Clem intervened. Lots of people were standing around and watching. The pizza guy was obviously really scared. There's about 5 or 6 of them that were there. And Clem intervened. He said, boys, what are you doing? Called a couple of the names. He actually already had relationships with them. He knew who they were, because they were boys from the area. He told them, what are you doing? Behave yourselves. Send the pizza man on his way. And then he sat with those boys and he talked to them about, what do you think you're doing? Is this really who you want to be? Is this really, sort of an hour later I just went out with some drinks for them. Because he actually sat down with his boys and had a conversation about the choices that they had in their lives. And we have to do those sorts of things if we want to support our young people. I know sometimes it can be quite scary to do that. Another way which the young people talked about how they wanted to be supported is access to opportunities that they're not used to. So it's about taking them places that they wouldn't normally get taken to. And one of the things that came from the actual race disparity audit is that as Black people, we don't do that. We don't go out to museums, cultural festivals, or things like that. Whereas actually white people do. So that there's an opportunity to bond, there's an opportunity to grow, there's an opportunity to learn together. And actually, for young people to get to know their worth, their history, by being exposed to conversations. All of you, like me, and I try to persuade my 19-year-old, have a young person in their life who could be in the room with them right now, listening and participation in this conversation. The other thing is that I think for all of us in our life, there will be particular touch points. And the young people I spoke to talked about times of difficulty or crisis. And we have to be really aware of these, and that's when we have to give our most attention and our most support to young people around us. And that might not come from the family, because it'll be a time of stress and a time of strife in the family. So those touch points are when actually there may be upset in the family. You all know it. A young person is giving, as we perceive it, their parents will have a trouble. And the other way around, the young person's thinking that their parents just don't understand what's going on in their lives. It actually happens quite often when young people transfer to secondary school. They actually find it quite difficult sometimes to deal with secondary school and then on to college. It's when they're having a difficult time getting a job or promotion, or when they've been excluded from school the first time. So somebody I was talking to talked about post-traumatic stress syndrome that we talk about in terms of the army, but actually as a young person being excluded, committing your first crime, being drawn into bad behaviour, starting to smoke spliffs, or whatever it is, actually, that's when we should be sitting down and talking, rather than shouting and pointing and prodding. And it's a difficult time. Puberty is not fun for anybody, so we really have to be there for them. They need us in their lives more. And we cannot let their ambition be dulled. We cannot. We have to be there to hold on to their hope until they're able to take their hope back and run with it themselves.